علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحانك لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر وأنت على كل شيء قدير. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما واجعل التفرق بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تدع فينا شقيا ولا محروما. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise and thanks are due to him, and peace and blessings be upon his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He who is guided by the will of Allah, no one can misguide him, and he who is misguided, no one can guide him except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. نعم بيسمعوا البر بيسمعوا هنا. هو الهم إنه الأطفال صوتهم ما يوصل إلي أنا بس اللي برا بيسمعوني إن شاء الله. الله يجزيك الخير. جزاك الله خير على حرصك. الله يكرمك يا رب. فجزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم. أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يبارك لنا. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to descend his mercy and barakah and blessings upon every single person of us. Allahumma ameen. Brother, may I ask you, we leave this area for the sisters. They will come now inshallah in a few minutes in case. جزاك الله خير. بارك الله فيك. Okay. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Today we are still in the charter of the Medina. If you remember, we know the constitution of Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, or the charter of Al-Madinah, or the covenant of Al-Madinah, Mithaq Al-Madinah, Ahd Al-Madinah, Dustur Al-Madinah. After Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, may the peace and blessings be upon him, migrated to Al-Madinah, one of the... Allah yajzika khair. Barakallah feek. Thank you very much. Shukran jazeeran. Jazakumullah khair, sister. Barakallah feekum. Thank you. After he migrated to Al-Madinah, one of the great things, if you remember, we said big three things: the masjid, mu'akha, and the constitution. The brotherhood between the muhajirin, the immigrants, and the ansar, the helpers of Al-Madinah. He did a unique, amazing thing in the history. No one else ever, to the best of our knowledge, has done it ever, never. That's a group of, migrated group. They come to a well-established group of people in their city, and they share with them everything they have 50-50. It's mind-blowing, by the way. When you think about it, 50-50. What does this mean? Can you imagine now, for example, just to give you an idea, Canadians now, they are 40 millions. Do you know that? Just a few weeks ago, we became 40 millions in Canada. 10 millions of them exactly, they are immigrants. 25%. By the way, in this country, we have the highest percentage of immigration compared with the population. 25%, 10 millions immigrants. Can you imagine now if, in theory, 10 million immigrants came to Canada, a 10 million or a 30 million original white Canadians will share with them everything they have 50%? I mean, do you think this could happen practically? In the language of economy, does this happen? It's more than impossible. I mean, no one can imagine it even. It's very difficult. I mean, humanly it's very difficult. Economically very difficult. Financially it's very difficult. I mean, what? Everything I have. So it happened at that time on their scale. This was al-mu'akha, the brotherhood. Then we talk about the masjid, the importance of the masjid, how Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how it happened, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the she-camel keep walking till Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stopped the she-camel on a place so that none of them will say, I am better, this is for me, it's just by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have an idea about the masjid. Then we started with the constitution of Al-Madinah. And one of the great things that we paid the attention to is that, to the best of our knowledge, from an academic point of view, it is the oldest constitution for a civil society ever in the history of humanity. Because people say, does this mean that people that did not have constitutions? Civil constitution between different ethnic, religious groups on the base of justice. Yes, people, they did have many big states, but has nothing to do with civil society on the base of justice. You have the Roman Empire, the Byzantines. Okay, they were ruling millions of people, but on the base of power and superiority for the Europeans against Africans, against Asians, against people of Bilad Sham. Yes, they have the power. Okay, Persians, the same thing. Pharaohs, Egyptians, the same thing, you know. Europeans in general. All of them, they used to have what we know now in our nowadays, the feudal lords. Do you know this terminology? Feudal lords, muluk al-iqta'iyyin, like small kingdoms. You have a king with a small kingdom, and you have a number what they used to call them the nobles and nubala, then soldiers, and the rest they were farmers, i.e. slaves. Most of Europe, this is what it was. So no civil society, I mean, no group of different ethnic backgrounds, religious background, okay, cultural background. They come in a place and they have a constitution. Your right, my right. There's no rights. Like king, soldiers, farmers, they are enslaved, literally. So this is most of the people on earth, they were like this. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he migrated and he was welcomed by Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, in theory, he could have done what every single person used to do on earth. Use the power, subjugate everyone, make them go in the way that you decide as someone who's owning the power. Period. Because this is what's the culture of earth at that time. But what did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ do? He made a charter of Al-Madinah. So that's why you need to study your history to see how great Islam was and is still. But unfortunately, during the history, because of ups and downs and because of the clashes with other civilizations, we have some people, they did their best to try to what? To portray the image of Islam in a wrong way. On top of those, what we call them in the world of academia are Orientalists, al-mustashriqun, those who used to study Islam, Muslims, history, hadith, sunnah, whatever, or Quran, and when they write for their people, i.e. Europeans or people of the West, they were not representing Islam in a genuine way. They tried to make a lot of, unfortunately. So let's go back and see how great Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, not because of himself as an Arab, he was a prophet representing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to know this. The greatness of Muhammad ﷺ, it's not just because he was from Quraysh. It was not from he was an Arab. It was not because he was clever. No. His greatness came from the fact that he was what? Prophet. So be careful. You know what I'm saying this? Because many Orientalists and many brainwashed Arab, secular, liberal writers, sometimes they see a non-Muslim Orientalist, a scholar, speaking about the how genius Muhammad was. Ooh, wow, Abqariyyat Muhammad, he was genius. Wow, look how just he is. He's writing that Muhammad was a genius. But he's refusing his prophethood. You got my point? So they don't mind to show him as a great leader, an Arab who used to conquer others for the sake of Arabs. No, Habibi. The greatness of Muhammad, I don't care if you said about Muhammad is genius or not. I don't care. I don't know. I care that you know that he was a prophet. His greatness, you know, just make it sure. The only thing that we care when we speak about Muhammad, that he's a prophet. Everything else is marginal. So even if he was not a genius, okay, he was guided by the revelation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was guiding him. So be careful about this. Anyway. So we came to Article 12 now. Last time we finished 11. Today number 12. Now, why I put all of this introduction to see the greatness of when Muslims used to have power, how they used to deal with the opponents, the other groups of non-Muslims when they have the power. To see how great Islam was. Because at that time, no one was able to stop them if they want to do injustice. Now, number 12, article number 12 from the Charter of Al-Madinah. قال وإنه من تبعنا من يهود فإن له النصر والأسوة وغير مظلومين ولا متناصر عليهم. This was put by the writer under the title حماية أهل الذمة والأقليات غير المسلمة. Now, this article in our nowadays language is the protection of the dhimmi. Please fix this terminology in your mind. I will explain it now. The dhimmi people, or as they write it in English, zimmi, okay? The dhimmi people, or the people of dhimma and non-Muslim minorities. Literally, the article says, any group from Jews, they decide to follow us. To be with us. In nowadays terminology, they decided to be citizens in our state. It's like now. I go back to just to remind you. In nowadays, the best civil society, when they want to give you their citizenship, they ask you to do what? When you take the citizenship, you will do what? The oath. The oath is what? Basically, it's a declaration of what? Loyalty. Voila. Because some people say, no, on what base? On what base you are doing it now? On what base? You want loyalty. Because if you are not loyal, you mean you are against us. You hate us. Which is common sense. Yes, if you want to have the citizenship, and you would love to be a Canadian, an American, and whatever, they ask you, just declare it. No, I don't want. Okay, why? Why? Why you don't? Do you have something in your heart? Okay. So the same thing. من تبعنا من يهود. Anyone would like to follow us, the group of new Muslims in their new states. قال فإن له النصر والأسوة. He will have the full support and victory. Which is exactly when you come a citizen, you will have the rights of the support of the state in case if you need help. True or false? And by the way, I'm comparing one of the highest level of applied civil society now with about 1500 years ago. To know how advanced Muslims were. Please keep this in your mind. This happened 1,440 years ago, more or less. Which is amazing. طيب. قال وإنه من تبعنا. Any group of Jews, they decide to follow us, to be with us, they will have the full backing, support and victory. غير مظلومين ولا متناصر عليهم. This exception. They will face nothing of injustice and no one has the right to support anyone against them. It's like saying in our terminology, for example, if you came now, some of us here in Canada, they came as asylum seekers for security reasons and for humanitarian reasons. True or false? Once Canadian, they decide to give him the citizenship, if anyone outsider wants to attack him, he will be, in theory, be enjoying the full support of the security of the state to be protected. Got my point? The same thing. Now, the majority and the political decision was done by Aus, Khazraj, and the immigrants. So they were the majority and they decided to do in that state. But they have minority, religious minority, which is the Jews. Immediately, without them asking, they were called the people of the Dhimma, and I will explain it now. and they have full support, full protection. No one will be tolerated if he's supporting any external power against them. Which means, if the Jews at Al-Madinah, they have enemies outside Al-Madinah, by law, it is prohibited to support anyone who will attack them from an outsider, by law, even though they don't believe in the faith of ours. Can you imagine this? Sometimes in some so-called civilized states now, we see for security reasons, they submit some individuals and they will be exposed to torture in their countries. Does this happen or not? 1400 years ago, it was prohibited in Islam. Anyone under your protection, if someone hates him, against him, wants him, to attack him, by law, you have no right to do this. You have to protect him. But he does not follow my faith, you must protect him. But he does not believe in what to believe, you must protect him. This is called civil society. Wallahi, you need to be proud of this, because people they don't know about the Charter of the Medina. Now, let me explain another thing. We have heard the terminology dhimmi. Now, dhimmi, one of the good translations for the word dhimmi, literally means protected person. When I say people of the dhimma, the group of non-Muslims who are protected by law, by default. They have special what? Protection. Referring to the state's obligation under Sharia to protect the individual's life, property, as well as freedom of speech, etc. A dhimmi refers to a non-Muslim derived from Islamic legal conceptions of membership to society. Non-Muslims, dhimmis, were afforded protection by the state and did not serve in the military in return for specific taxes. Now, you need to know these two terminologies, dhimmi and jizya. You must know them. Dhimmi means a non-Muslim who lives in an Islamic state and he is protected by the law. This dhimmi was asked to pay jizya, in our terminology, to pay a specific tax as a non-Muslim. What is the role of this tax? The role of this tax that religiously, it's not an obligation on him to serve in the army. It's not an obligation. But a Muslim is supposed to die on his behalf, protecting him and his family and his property. If he wants to join, look, he is not forced to be in the army, which means he is not forced to go and die on behalf of us, because he does not believe. So we are respecting the fact that in his faith, he has no obligation to be with us fighting and losing his life for the sake of the state. We respect that. To a degree, okay, then pay a tax. But if I decided as a Christian to go and fight, no tax. Come, be a soldier. You are most welcome. What's this? Compare it with what used to happen to any minor, any ethnic minority, religious minority in any state just the last 70 or 80 years, in any place on earth. Compare, I challenge. In any place, in any country, east, west, north, south, a religious minority enjoy. Now, if your faith tells you that it's prohibited for you, for example, to fight for any reason, it might be treason against the state, and you will go to jail. True or false? Yes, it's for a big reason. Even which is amazing. Muslims, they used to respect religious minorities in terms of they don't force them to join them in fighting and protecting the state. They used to have to take money and they give a specific title which is protected by law by the word dhimmi. Now see how sad Orientalists used to use this. Just to let, for those who don't know me, I did my PhD in comparative religions in the UK about 25 years ago. Okay? So my field is comparative religions. So my courses in the PhD, it was exclusively with priests, and many non-Muslims, my colleagues. They were priests of churches from all over the world, Arabs and non-Arabs. Most of them, they are non-Arabs. I witnessed by my own eyes one of the professors in my university attending his class. The audience, none of them was a Muslim except myself. And none of them understands Arabic from the Muslims except myself. When I tell you about the thing that I witnessed by my own eyes. When he was explaining to an audience of Muslims and non-Muslims, but all Muslims, they were non-Arabs, all Arabs, they were non-Muslims. And I was the only one who was an Arab and a Muslim. Okay? Now the point, in one of his classes, he was explaining to them, he was the expert, professor in Christian-Muslim relations. I felt very sad. He was explaining to them the word dhimmi as second-class people in the Muslim society. Second class. He gave them the indication exactly as German Nazis did with Jews and other groups in the Nazi Germany. Look the injustice of planting the seeds in the students. And I was a witness there. I had a big discussion with him, but he attacked me, and because at the end I'm just a simple, humble student who came from Arab world, hardly able to speak English. You know, this 25 years ago, my English. Literally, maybe it's applicable in me no English. It was very humble, simple English at that time. So I hardly was able, okay, I started my PhD, but at the end I'm not a native speaker because by the way, I started using English in my study starting at the age of 30. Before 30, I was not using English. So it was not something easy for me to argue in a philosophical thing, and I'm not a native speaker. I did not study English language. I was using English in my religious studies, but I did not have English courses. So sometimes I used to witness the direct lies. I'm so blameless I was not having the power to argue. Anyway, so in many cases, but this is something I witnessed part of it with my own eyes. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And I read for many Orientalists, when you go, for example, for Montgomery Watt, when you go to Gap, Seerah, Massignon, big names from Holland, from UK, from France. When you read about the terminology zimmi or dhimmi, they will be classified as second-class people in the Islamic society. Is that true? Wallahi, they are the group who have the full protection by law. Second class? Literally, Prophet Muhammad said in a hadith, "Man adha dhimmiyan faqad adhani." Anyone who harm a dhimmi, a protected non, he is harming me personally directly. What does this mean? Great sin. Great sin. Because Prophet Muhammad understands any majority, they will have the superiority and power and easily will do injustice for any minority. Look what happens now in India against Muslims. Even though Muslims, they are a minority of just 200 millions. But compared with 800 millions, 1 billion, they are a minority. They are tortured. They are tortured now. They are killed on daily basis, on cameras. And the people, they are just looking, doing nothing, saying nothing, as if nothing happens. As if nothing happens. Uyghur in China, Bosnians and the Serbs. Many examples. So at that time, the idea, generally speaking, any ethnic group, national group, religious group, when they have power, easily they tend to do injustice for a minority. If they are not protected by very superior, powerful, genuine law, with enforcement of the law, or the high ethical law for some big reasons, or easily those who have the power at the majority will do injustice, which is a common human phenomenon. Look what happened between Hutu and Tutsi, if I did not mistake, in Africa about 20 years ago. Do you remember? Big problem, It's, I think, Tutsi and Hutu, two African group in Rwanda, about 21, 22, 25 years ago. They had a big fight, and they were fueled by French and Americans for political reasons. One of them is a big tribe, the second one is a small tribe. They killed 1 million. 1 million they killed in Rwanda. Can you imagine? Without mass destruction weapons. 1 million in a very short time. Which means they were torturing them like sheep and cattle by hundreds. By minutes, hundreds are killed because 1 million. Because they have the power. If you don't have, so in Islam, Allah knows, Muhammad ﷺ knows that when you have the power and you might tend to do injustice. So immediately they have another faith, yes, they don't believe in what we believe, but full protection. This is justice because it's the law of Allah. By the way, if it was the law of Arabs, do you think this will happen? Why should they? Why? Imagine if it's just Arab, because, by the way, just for your information, the majority of Orientalists in their writings for the last average, because Orientalists, they started to have this kind of power 16th century, 17th, 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th. This is the golden era of them writings against Islam and Muslims. In most of their writings, they were calling, who knows what was the name of Muslims in most of their writings? Who knows what were our Muslim name? Jazakallah khair. The Muhammadans, which means what? The followers of Muhammad, not Muslims. Because they understand, they know that we don't follow Muhammad as a Muhammad. We followed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guidance through what He decided to send as a messenger who happened to be Muhammad. What was their plan in doing so? To give the image for Europeans, their followers, that Muhammad ﷺ, because they were trying to spread the idea that Muhammad was a genius Arab, not a prophet. He was a liar, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But he was trying to find a solution for poverty, disasters for Arabs in a very difficult, poor society. So he created an idea. Hey, Arabs, I received revelation from Allah, God. And they believed him because they were idiots. I'm giving you, how was the narration for millions, for hundreds of years. And many Europeans, they believed this narrative. And so you see, he was so clever. So he promised them with 72 virgins when they die, when they go to heavens. Ooh, because people, Arabs, they think just about sex. And they have rivers of wine and haram and khamr and haram, you see? So this is what's the image. And Muhammad was so clever. He was promising them that just go and fight, go and kill. When you are killed, you will go up to the heavens and 72 virgins are waiting for you. This is wallahi. And he gave them some kind of rituals. They have a black books in the desert and they keep just circling around this black books. You see? Wallahi, I'm not joking. I spent 6 years by the way, I studied the PhD in 6 years and I attended tens of conferences with non-Muslims on academic level. Priests and rabbis, and I gave lectures for hundreds of priests, and I read, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of pages. Mind-blowing. You say, what? This is how Islam is represented? Wallahi ya. Wallahi ya. I mean, maybe because it's not the field of your majority, you will not expect what happens in these books and in their minds. La hawla wa la quwwata illa. I feel very sorry. I feel very sorry. But anyway, so we were called in the historical writings of Orientalists in the 17th, 18th, 19th, beginning of the 20th century as Muhammadans, to refer to the fact that we are following the person of Muhammad, who was a genius Arab leader for political reasons, but he's not a prophet. By this, what is the message? Just we are nothing more than, I don't know if any one of you studied part of the European history. You know, Europeans, for thousands of 2,000-3,000 years, the Roman Empire, it was the biggest power. However, have you heard about the Vandals or vandalism? Has any one of you studied what the term Vandals or vandalism means? Okay, I'll give you an idea. The Vandals are a Germanic barbarian tribes. Okay? They were, when you go to Wikipedia, when you read the lexicons, they will be described as a barbarian German tribes who attacked the Roman Empire, and they managed to make the Roman Empire collapse. Can you imagine? And they were described in the Wikipedia and in the historical resources as barbarians, backward people, just tribal, like monsters. They kept attacking the civilized Roman Empire, and they made their own states in what we know now in the southwestern part of France and Spain. And from those groups of, this is German tribes. Another group of German tribes, the same thing. They came and attacked many Europeans, and they formed what we know now as the English, the Britons. By the way, maybe you don't know, English people, I'm talking about English, not the British. Because in Britain, you have English, Scots or Scottish, and you have the Welsh, okay? And you have the Irish. Irish are a nation. Welsh, another group, ethnic origin. Scottish, they were living in what we know now as the United Kingdom. The English people came from the German tribes more than 1,000 years. They attacked them, they controlled them, they united them by power, they became the United Kingdom under the English language. But Scottish are not English, Welsh are not English, Irish are not English, and they have Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. The Northern, they are Catholics, as they used to be. The Southern, they are Protestant, following the English, okay? So this is history. Now in this history, Europeans, they look to German tribes, they call it Germanic tribe, barbarian tribes, the Vandals. They were so backward and so thirsty for blood, to a degree, they derived from their names the word vandalism. Go and search the word vandalism, it became a terminology for barbarian act of killing people, for exactly like the Mughals in our history. When they came and destroyed the Islamic Caliphate and they killed the people in Iraq and in Bilad al-Sham and in Damascus, exactly when you speak about Al-Maghul wa Tatar, who invaded Muslim empire and killed millions for the sake of millions, in the same way of understanding, they describe the Vandals in Europe, okay? When they want to describe Muslims as Arab tribes, they bring to the attention that Muhammad and his Arabs are exactly like Vandals. Because when you understand something in your context, it's very easy to explain a new thing for you by linking what you know with what you are about to know. It will be, see, okay, this group is a copy of this. Oh, okay, understand. Wow. So they are barbarian, yes, following a very clever leader. My God, he's very clever. His name is Muhammad. Oh, so they are Mohammedans. So what they want to? They want to invade us. For the sake of what? They want to go to the paradise to sleep with 72 virgins. Wallahi, this is, I read thousands of pages about this. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So therefore, we have a big duty, brothers. Big duty to understand your history and to be with knowledge, with patience, to explain to many people around you. Anyone reads these things, his mind and his heart will be full against you. And you don't know. We are very simple and humble people. We speak with the people, you don't know what's in his mind. If he is reading, he's educating himself in these sources, oh my God. Oh my God. You can't imagine. When you read, you see, oh no way, no way. This is what many Orientalists, unjustly they write. But why I'm mentioning all of these things? Because compared with the reality, when you speak about Charter of Medina, when you speak about the Covenant of Al-Medina, when you speak about the real context of 1500 years ago, Prophet Muhammad said, "Man aadha dhimmiyan faqad aadhani." Anyone who hurted, anyone who decided to harm a protected non-Muslim in my country, he is directing his harm against me, which means a great major sin. So this is the reality, and this is the claimed in the historical books for some Orientalists, which is, wallahi, it's insane. But you need to know it. And you need to be ready to defend and to explain. And by the way, the majority of people, when you speak with them and they explain, that's why we have thousands of people that become Muslims when they discover the truth, because they don't know. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنَهُ. Open, quote unquote, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. If any non-Muslim was seeking refuge by you in the battlefield, while the fighting is going on. Even, you are fighting now. And he said, I seek refuge by you, I want just a piece of time. It's an obligation to stop the fight. Give him some kind like a shelter or a security or a haven. Give him this kind of peace of mind and protected, and let him listen to your message, because your aim as a Muslim is not to fight. Your aim is just to convey the message of Allah. If this has been done, khalas, the story is finished. Mission is accomplished. It's to convey the message. He received it, it's his decision. خلاص لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. So ثم أبلغه أحد مستجديك فأجره حتى, give him this haven or protection till he listens to the word of Allah. ثم, then give him his full choice. Okay, he listened. He wants to think. Give him this. He refused. No problem. But you did your job. أبلغه مأمنه. It's your duty to take in his hand to let him be able to reach to a secure place in his measurements. طب why يا Allah? ذلك بأنهم قوم لا يعلمون. Because they don't know. The majority, by the way, of the people around us, they don't know. So it's your duty from one angle to study, to read, to seek the knowledge, and to know why, when, how, depending on what, and to do your best to do da'wah, or to be ready at least to answer the question when someone is asking you or someone has a big deal. That's why, and let's take a big lesson from Mus'ab radiallahu anhu. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he was around 26, more or less, when he was sent as the first ambassador of Muslims to Al-Medina after the Covenant of Al-Aqaba. Do you remember in our history? Mus'ab, he was a young man, in our words, a young man. He was sent to a complete city to represent Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and talk about Islam. He faced many times the great leaders of Al-Aws al-Khazraj. They hear that a young man, his name Mus'ab, representing a Qurashi guy, his name is Muhammad, came to speak about a new religion. So they came with their might and power, witnessing him. Barakallah feek. Shukran jazila. Jazakumullah khair, sister. Barakallah feek. Make dua for her parents. She's bringing this coffee for us, jazakallah khair, with the intention of sadaqah jariyah on her parents. So make dua for them. Allah yajzihum khair. بارك الله فيك sister. الله يجزيكم الخير ويرحمهم رحمة واسعة إن شاء الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. What I was saying. ماله؟ وجه مين؟ الله يجزيك الخير. Just to make sure that you're not sleeping, okay? So Mus'ab bin Umair radiallahu anhu, he was faced by the great leaders of Al-Aws al-Khazraj in many occasions. As'ad bin Zurara, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, they used to come, holding their sword. Stand and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing in the city? Say, do you mind to listen for 15 minutes, 10 minutes? What? Do you mind? Okay, I'm nothing. You can kill me now, but do you mind? So I don't mind. Okay, speak. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is what happened. Subhanallah. That's why the power of the word. And by the way, it's not any word, it's the word of Allah. The Quran. When you speak, by the way, we don't bring the power because we are Arabs or because we are whatever. No. Because of what? The word of Allah. Allah is the one who gave the power for His word, not me. Because it contains the truth. I did not invent it. I did not discover it. I just was gifted by receiving it. And I accepted it. So it's my duty to convey it to others. It's like receiving a gift. And this gift is shareable. You can give a copy for anyone who would like to have it. Simply, you received it, it's a gift. Then what shall I do to say thanks to Allah? Tell others about them, let them have a copy, free copy. This is Islam. So it's not your property. And by the way, I myself who's speaking with you now, no one knows what will be my final stage in my life. Maybe a non-Muslim now who's sitting outside drinking alcohol now, he might be an atheist, could be better than me 10 times in the coming 5 years. No, we don't know. Because it's not my decision. I do my best. He might do better than what I'm doing. I might fall in some kind of shortcomings. I go behind 2-3 steps. May Allah forgive me. And this non-Muslim now in 5 years might be a great da'i and leader of Islam. Is this possible in Islam? Definitely. Because we don't have hierarchy in Islam. We don't have racism in Islam. We don't have classes. We don't have caste system. And now, if a non-Muslim now became a Muslim tonight, and he decided to be like Abu Hurairah, fully dedicated 24/7 for the knowledge of Islam and the love of Allah, in 2 years, he might put someone like me behind. Can anyone stop him? No. No one. By the way, this is part of the magic of Islam. I will explain to you what I mean. If you want to be an American, is it enough to declare that you love America? Say, for example, I bear witness that I love America. And I bear witness that the American system is the best system on earth. By this, are you entitled to be an American citizen? Type. If you are living now in Jordan, Palestine, Africa, Somalia, Pakistan, and you said, I bear witness that Canada is the best country, and wallahi, I love Canada. Does this entitle you to have Canadian citizenship immediately? May Allah be with you. Wallahi, sometimes you fill an application of 50 pages, and you bring evidences, your bank account, and you bring support, and you have tons of evidences, and many cases, you will not even enjoy having a visitor visa. Is this true or not? Type. In Islam, Wallahi by Allah, Billahi Tallahi Walillahi alayya qasaman. If you decided to become a Muslim and that 2 billion Muslims on earth refused, they can't stop you. You will be a Muslim. Because once you decide to go to a cave, and no one knows about you, and you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is His messenger, you will be a Muslim, whether I love or I hate. Even if all Muslim scholars, they say, no, we will not allow you. Wallah, you can't. You will be a Muslim, غصب عنك, whether you liked or not, you can't. Tell me, where does this concept is applicable on earth? Is this emotional approach or a logical approach? Rational one. I'm giving you evidences. Speak up. What distinguishes Islam? I'm giving you evidences what distinguishes Islam. You can be a Muslim when you decide to give you the real meaning of human rights and the real meaning of freedom. You can get into Islam when you want. No one can force you. No one can prevent you. And you can leave Islam whenever you want. And may Allah be with you. Take a decision. This is the true freedom. But in many other cases, you have no choice. But wallahi. For example, I said, wallahi, I love America and I would love to be an American. I bear witness that America is the best. No one cares. They will not give me the citizenship. Am I exaggerating? But this is a reality. This is how you make comparisons. To compare between a system and a system. It's a simple. By the way, it's a scientific approach. It's an academic scientific approach to give you, when someone wants to say, okay, on what base you think your religion is really something unique? I'm giving you evidences. How to think. This is not, it's not an emotional, I'm not telling you, our hearts. I feel that Islam is the best. No, Habibi, no, I don't use this system. It's like, do you remember? And please focus on this. I did it maybe 10 times. Let's make it number 11 now. One of the great stories that I keep always repeating, just to give you a very intellectual, rational evidences about how genuine and truthful Islam is. The story of Richard Varley. Do you remember it? How many of you remembers? 1, 2, 3. So it's good, but the majority, they don't know it. Very quickly. Richard Varley is a colonel in the British police, in the special unit of terrorism encounter. 1989. Something happened in the UK called the Rushdie affair. Salman Rushdie is a person from India who claimed to be a Muslim. He wrote a novel attacking Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and, the wives of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a very, very wicked way. Muslims became very angry at that time. And unfortunately, he was supported by the British system at that time. And Queen Elizabeth herself supported him, unfortunately. Anyway, so he was making fun and attacking and accusing Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wives and his household in a very, very bad way. So many Muslims, they started making like demonstration in the street against this novel to be stopped and to bring him to the court. At that time, Richard Varley was a colonel in the special unit of terrorism encounter in the police, British police. So he's talking, by the way, I'm quoting his exact words from an interview 7 years ago in the YouTube now. When I finish, go and write on the YouTube or in Google, just write Richard Varley, his journey to Islam. He was talking about self. At that time, now I think he's approaching 70 now. At that time, he was 30 something. So he has good rank, special units, in the police. He said he was asked to take care that no problems will happen in the streets of London at that time. He was in charge of that. So, okay, what's the problem? A group of Muslims, they might make some troubles. Okay, what does it mean, Muslims? Who are Muslim? He had no idea at all. What does the word Muslim mean? So, at that time, no internet. We are talking about 89, no internet, no YouTube, no Google, no social, nothing at all. The only way is just to read books. So he went to the library, anything about Muslims, they say the Quran. So he brought a copy of the Quran to read about those possible troublemakers who will make demonstration in the street, to know how they think. So he bought a copy of the Quran to understand their mentality, about their beliefs. He started reading the Quran. He's talking about himself. Now, I forgot to tell you that Richard Varley, he graduated from a British university with double major. He did a major in physics and major in biology, he himself. Then he went to the police, British police, okay? So he's saying, I was reading this book in English. He said, I came across قول الله تعالى والسماء أولم يرى الذين كفروا أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما وجعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي. He read, Allah says in the Quran, for him, it's just a book of a group of, they call their Muslims, they were used to be Arabs, he does not believe in anything, he knows nothing about Muhammad, he knows Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he knows nothing about the history of Muslims, he's reading the book. And he knew that this book's age is 1400 years. طيب. This book says in this verse, have not the non-believers seen that heavens and earth, they were one mass and we split them into pieces? He said, what? He says, as someone who studied physics and biology, we know this now as the Big Bang Theory. Just tens of years ago, we discovered, depending on the movement of the universe, because it's expanding all the time, started from one, mass, and was split. They call it نظرية الانفجار العظيم, or the Big Bang Theory. Said, but how this book is talking about this 1400 years ago? We have just discovered this 100, 150, 120 years ago, just decades. Okay, a note, check. He said, I continued reading. Then I came across قول الله تعالى والسماء بنيناها بأيد وإنا لموسعون. He said, we have built, this is we, not the plural we, this is the majestic we in English, okay? The greatness, of majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have built heavens with might, great power, and we are still expanding the universe. Look, وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ, and we are still expanding. He said, what? Wait. He said, I studied physics, and I know that Richard Hubble telescope, he was the first one who discovered 100 years ago, just 100, 107, 110 years, about 100 years ago, Richard Hubble, the very famous telescope of Richard Hubble, he discovered that the universe is expanding. Just 100 years ago. Because they used to spot the light of for example, of a star. Then they discover it has moved 10 years ago. Okay? Or later. So they discovered that, there's an expansion of the universe. They said the world is expanding. But what? The Quran says that the creator of this universe, according to Muhammad and Arabs, whose name is Allah, says that we have built the universe with great might and we are still expanding. How did Muhammad, the desert man, know about the expansion, the continuous expansion of the universe? It was the second step. The third step, which khalas, he was completely ready to submit. Then he came to the third, because the title of the meeting, it was 3 verses changed my life. Please go and listen to Richard Varley. It's 3 verses changed my life, Richard Varley. Al-Hiwar channel. It's on the YouTube. Then he came to قول الله تعالى اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. الآية اللي قبلها. جعلنا الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا. Allah is describing how he paved and made it easy the surface of earth, and that he made mountains like pegs and wedges. Then he came, his second major is what? Sorry, I said biology, it's geology. I'm sorry. It's not biology, it's geology. Okay? So his second major is geology. He said, wait. He said, my major is geology. And he was reading this verse 1989, 1990, 91. Because he kept reading for 3 years, I think, or 4 years. 1992, 93, I forgot, he became a Muslim. So he kept reading 3 years. So he read this verse around 91, 92. He said, we have just discovered when we see cross-section now that mountains actually 10% of them they are above the surface of earth and 90% of them they are what? Inside the depth of earth, like exactly like pigs and wedges. Which now the pig or the wedges basically when you use it for the tent, how do we fix the tent? You make this metal piece like a pen, you keep ting 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 like this, you will have just the head or the tip of it. The rest is inside to fix the tent. So Allah is describing mountains as pigs and wedges, which is that's why the surface of earth is stable. Should we have discovered because of the lava, you know the lava which is the melted rocks inside the earth. They have just discovered this in early 60s. He said just 30 years ago we studied this. We have just discovered. How did Muhammad know about the mountains? A cross section which goes to thousands of meters. Thousands. Like for example Everest. Everest is 5,000 meters above. So try to calculate what is the size of Everest inside. 90% inside. Can you imagine this? How did Muhammad know? Then he said his famous word. He said, after reading this verse, I was completely sure that this book is impossible to be but from a divine source. He was not discussing the personality of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was not discussing the history of Islam and Muslims. He was not, no. He was just saying, just 3 verses, and that's for your information. Quran is about 6,300 verses. 1,000 verse of them contains what we know now as science. 1,000. It's not a scientific book. However, it contains indications about what we call as science. 3 verses out of 1,000 made him a Muslim. Imagine if the majority of people on earth knew just about 100. What will happen? But they don't know. Actually, Muslims themselves, they don't know. The majority. The majority of Muslims, they don't know. They don't know. So, please, do your best to educate yourself about Islam and to understand when you present Islam. Right. We have just about 10 minutes. Now, I will give you an idea what we'll be doing next time. Second, so today, at least we spoke about the people of Dhimma and the protected group of non-Muslims, whether they are religious minority or ethnic minority of whatever minority, but they are not following Islam. They have full protection, legal protection by the promise and covenant of Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we knew how the word dhimmi is misused in the history of the books of some, unfortunately, historical writings of Orientalists. Next time, we will be dealing with number 13. I will just read the text to have an idea, which is قال وإنه من اعتبط مؤمنا قتلا عن بينة فإنه قود به إلا أن يرضى ولي المقتول بالعقل وإن المؤمنين عليه كافة ولا يحل لهم إلا قيام عليه. Translation for Arabs. This article is talking about the penalty law when someone kills someone else. What was the ruling at Al-Madinah if someone killed someone intentionally or by mistake? So we will be explaining next time the concept of hudud, qisas, ta'zir, or ta'zir, sorry. This is an Islamic terminology in the Islamic law and has to do with the penalty law, qanun al-uqubat. Now, speak about hudud, we have a special terminology, limits, about like drinking alcohol, okay, or committing zina. And we have something called qisas. Qisas is a special terminology about the penalty when someone hurts the body of someone else starting from simple cut or injury up to killing him. Anything has to do with the harm on a body, from death to any simple injury. It has special category in Islam called qisas. We will explain the rulings in Islam, why, when, how, depending on what, for Muslims and non-Muslims. And we have something called ta'zir. Ta'zir is a specific terminology in Islam where there's a flexibility for the ruler or the judge to issue a fatwa or let's say convict someone by something which is not from the hudud and not from the qisas. There's details under this. We'll explain it next time. This was first of all established and talked about by the Charter of Madinah, to know really how powerful and great the constitution of Muslims used 1400 years ago. Jazakumullah khair. See you next time, and if you wish, tomorrow as well we have a tafsir session inshallah bi'idhnillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair.